5%,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I'm estimating it.
Yeah.
The minute it's 4%, your investors are going to be really annoyed with you. And it's not just that they're going to come after you. It's that they're going to see you in like times.
Foodland. Times.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Especially here in Hawaii.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or you're going to be, Auntie's going to be at Thanksgiving dinner, and she's like, where's that
Yeah.
$50,000?
What happened?
You lost my money.
Yeah.
You lost my money. And nobody wants to lose their investors' money.
And if you don't know, I'm blowing up like you thought I would. I'm blowing up like you thought I would. And if you don't know,
Welcome to the Deals in Aloha podcast, where we talk to local business owners to hopefully leave a lasting impact with our audience and, of course, spread aloha.
Gee.
You can find us on all social media platforms at Kamohai and Tristyn. Please like, subscribe, share.
Follow.
We're trying to get this to as many people as possible to add as much value to you folks. So let's go.
Let's go. Guys, today I'm super excited because it's our first ever attorney on the podcast, and he's our personal attorney, you guys. So this is going to be a super, super cool treat. We're going to have a kind of a different conversation, but always comes back to real estate nonetheless. But
Yeah.
today we have David Austin from David Austin Law. He helps families build, grow, and protect their real estate legacies. He uses trust, legal entities like LLCs, and traditional estate planning techniques, which leverage his experience as an attorney. And he's also a real estate investor, you guys. He does it himself, so he knows what he's talking about. So we met like 3 years ago.
Sounds about right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like 3 or 4
About
years
3
ago.
Yeah,
And I remember I'm like, you're a referral from another real estate investor friend of ours. And I just
Okay.
called you up and I was like, I want to create this intense corporate structure.
I remember this.
Do you remember that?
Which most people were telling us we
didn't
couldn't
need.
do, or we
Right.
didn't need,
Right.
or they couldn't do it that way.
Yeah. And I was like, no, I want it very I was pretty specific, right?
Yes.
And you were like, but you didn't tell me I was crazy. You're like, okay, well, let's think about this. And we created a trust, we created other things, which led to other things. And we didn't have all the assets then that we do now. But I said, watch, David,
That's right.
I'm going to
One day, this structure will make sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it makes sense now, right?
It makes perfect sense now. And you were so smart about it too, because you laid like the foundation and you built the houses. You didn't necessarily furnish them all.
Yeah.
But you knew where you were going, and
Yeah.
that's so smart to do it in like a modular way like that. So
Yeah,
it was awesome.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I remember specifically, and then that was the first time we had to think about how we were going to set up our trust and all this stuff. But anyway, how did you become a lawyer? Was this always the plan of yours to be a lawyer, attorney? What is it? Are you called lawyer or attorney? Are they the same damn thing?
This is the same thing. Yeah, it's
Okay.
absolutely the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I use lawyer because
Yeah.
attorney sounds more formal. I am a lawyer.
Yeah.
I never thought I was going to be a lawyer.
Really?
I had zero desire or interest or even understanding of what a lawyer did.
Mhm.
My mom was a teacher. My dad was an engineer. They were very let's go to work, let's come home. They were very kind of they were non-entrepreneurial people, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't necessarily have a mindset or a framework in terms of what I wanted to do specifically. I was actually going to be a musician, a classical
Oh,
musician.
no way.
Yeah, that
It's
was
the
my
opposite
Yeah.
of a lawyer.
Exactly. Yeah, I was a lawyer. Exactly. So, what ended up happening though was I graduated from college. I had no idea what I was going to do because I just was kind of spur of the moment.
Right,
Yeah.
Right.
And so I worked on Wall Street for a little bit, and I worked in IT, and I did website development because back then, everybody who graduated college was like a website developer.
Yeah.
And then the economy got bad in I think it was 2000 or something.
Yeah.
And so I applied to law school not knowing what else to do, and I got in and I went, and I enjoyed it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, nice.
I liked it. It was pretty I don't know. It was it was more analytical than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a lot of writing and thinking and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
constitution
Yeah.
type stuff
Yeah.
and argument. And it really isn't. It's
Uh-huh.
a lot of legal training and legal thinking is kind of based on a formula. It's very mathematical, right?
Yeah, totally.
So I graduated. I clerked for a judge in Philly while my wife was finishing her medical residency. Then I went and I got an MBA from Hopkins in real estate.
Mhm.
And then we moved here
Mhm.
after we had our first kid. And
Yeah.
so that was really my first, I guess, foray into like a law firm practice. And
Yeah.
I worked for a larger firm, litigation firm, and I was a
Okay.
litigator,
Uh,
which I was not very good at and did not like.
Yeah.
And because there's a lot of hurry up and wait.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I then moved kind of into transactional real estate, and I guess from there I worked in a title and escrow company.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that gave me a lot of really good, I think, foundation into like not just Hawaii law, but almost like Hawaii culture and
Mm.
society, because
Mm.
there's so much with Native Hawaiian
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
rights
Mhm.
and stuff baked into Hawaii, like
Yes.
real estate. law.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
100%. Just
100%.
incredible.
Yeah.
So,
Which is unlike any other place in the country.
I tell this to people and they don't believe me. It really is.
Yeah.
It is a very, very unique.
well, no
thing
other
we
place
have.
has the Great Mahele. You know
That's
what I mean?
right. No, it's exactly right.
Yeah.
No, it's exactly right.
Yeah.
So, and from there, I just decided I was going to open up my own practice. But as I opened up my own practice, I then started real estate investing and
Nice.
created a, I guess it was more of like an asset advisory. We raised a lot of capital. We focused mostly on buying, I guess it was office buildings under the radar of REITs, but above the ability for a single investor.
Got it.
You know,
Mm.
between
it's like,
like
a sweet spot, little
Yeah,
middle.
right in
Exactly.
between,
Like,
middle
yeah.
ground.
$10 to
Yeah.
$25 million.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And so I had a pool of clients and friends and past investors that invested, and my business partner did too. And so she and I, we
Mhm.
bought assets in Arizona and Dallas, Texas, Colorado. Where else? I think those are really the three main
main
Markets,
locations.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we had one like experiential retail place where people would come in. It was like it's a design center in Scottsdale,
okay.
Arizona. We still
Oh,
have it.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Which oddly enough was the best asset during COVID. It was the one I thought
Really?
was going to get just
Decimated.
destroyed.
Yeah.
Really, it was
Really?
amazing. Well, because all right, so think about the model, right? It's like a commercial retail center for interior designers,
Mm.
Okay.
and it's not open to the general public. You
Okay.
always have to make an appointment to go in, and when one of these designers comes in, they spend like $200,000 on furniture
Wow.
because they
True.
have like 15 clients.
Yeah,
Right.
totally.
Right.
And everyone's at home during COVID.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And they were able to remain open because it's like two people
It's
per
by-
like
right.
a million square feet or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it really, really did well. Everyone
Wow.
paid their rent on time. It was
Interesting.
really
Was it?
funny.
Did you guys buy that business, or did you create
bought the-
that? You bought the
the
asset
building.
We
that
bought the
housed
building.
it.
That's
okay.
correct.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
she-
yeah.
yeah.
You just took it was a good tenant to take in.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Crushed it.
Exactly. The tenants all crushed it because there were like maybe 15 of them in this design center.
And you were in
Yeah.
Arizona.
Exactly. And they're in
Yeah.
Scottsdale. And so everyone had all this disposable income.
Yeah.
Right.
And all these guys are working from home
Yeah.
and they're redecorating their houses.
Totally.
And,
yeah, that's awesome.
yeah.
That is
Crazy.
awesome.
It was kind of cool.
Okay, so I feel like there's a lot to unpack there. So it's safe to say that you kind of started in title and escrow, and then you became an investor yourself. So it just made sense to keep your practice within the confines of real estate.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it was what I knew. And my investment experience kind of came about just because I understood through like my law practice a lot of like the math that was
Mhm.
involved, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I can
yeah.
underwrite things.
Yeah.
I
Right.
understood how a transaction happened, how a
Right.
closing happened,
Yeah.
what due diligence was. And so a
Mhm.
lot of the investors, especially people from Hawaii who wanted to diversify
Mhm.
Yeah.
their assets, as I think everybody should diversify their
100%.
assets.
Absolutely.
You know, they were able to like say, David, go and look at this building
Right.
and help me with the due diligence. And so I knew other like local counsel that could help. And we
Mhm.
would just kind of raise money from local Hawaii investors.
Yeah.
And we have a couple, I guess, investors in Asia and Hong Kong
Yeah.
Mhm.
specifically that
Yeah.
would, that would invest. And it really is the same like 20 guys. They
Yeah.
keep kind of
Of
pairing
course.
up, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
So do you still have all those assets?
Yeah.
Or like what's the long-term play with these assets? And it's only commercial.
it's only commercial and
Okay.
it's almost 90% office.
Okay.
So they are right now, we're just still kind of, they're buy and hold, so it's like
Yeah.
a 7-year period,
Yeah.
probably longer now.
Yeah.
Some of the loans are coming due,
Right.
but we sort of anticipated that refinancing was going to be a problem as we,
Yeah.
move forward because we just
Yeah.
assumed, interest rates were going to
Well, they-
increase as they
and-
always do and they
Right.
have.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And we didn't anticipate, of course, how bad lenders were going to be, I hope
how
there
they
are no
were going to
lenders listening.
react.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where they're
It's,
just
it's hard right now.
they're frozen.
Yeah.
right?
Big time.
So, so commercial lenders, even assets that are really well capitalized, where I
Yeah.
have the investors like putting their own money to like, kind of like not rehabilitate, but to like,
Yeah.
fix the asset,
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
put in
yeah.
capital improvements and stuff.
Right.
Yep.
They're like afraid of relending,
Yeah.
even at astronomically high rates.
That's
Yeah, that's
crazy.
So,
crazy.
yeah, it's the uncertainty is really what kind of made me go back almost full time into law practice because everything was sort of like buy and hold, and we were just taking those assets and optimizing them now.
Right.
Right.
So we were just trying to kind of like find efficiencies, make sure that we offered decent rent concessions, and of course COVID happened,
Right.
Yeah.
so no one wanted to go back to offices. So we had to find really creative ways to get around like people who did not want to keep as much office space as they had before.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
And what happened in most markets was that then you just got a lot of guys like me, right, who need 2,000 square feet, 1,500, so like these small offices.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah. Right.
throw up demising walls.
Broke
A
'em up,
bunch of
yeah.
mom and
Yeah.
pop
Busting them up
shops.
That's
into
exactly
little.
right.
Yeah.
And those really are the users because the assets that we invested in weren't really like these beautiful office buildings in downtown metro areas. They were suburban like office parks and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And the tenant base was already guys like me, just bigger.
Yeah.
And so what we had to do is just simply kind of pivot a little bit.
Yeah.
We're also working on some like flexible space right now. We're working on a few like co-sharing
Okay.
opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
When it-
co-working.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When I mean they're not necessarily like easily made lucrative,
Yeah.
but there is a huge need, and I found that they're very, very good feeders as they grow
Got
to
it.
need office space in the building.
Right.
And if you
True.
have like, especially if you have spec suites out there, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You can just kind of like simply move your stuff
Here you
upstairs
go.
Yeah,
one
just move it.
afternoon,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you've got the spec suite ready to go in. So.
Yeah, that's
that
cool.
makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense.
Was it always in the? How did it turn into commercial? Was it like that was a natural progression for you, or why did you choose that asset class?
That's a very good question because
Yeah.
because multifamily is wonderful, but I had a lot of difficulty when I dealt with people and their lives.
Mm.
And if I have to evict a commercial tenant because they can't pay their rent, it is very different for me than a human being who's living in a place who can't make their rent because they've lost their job or they got sick or something like that. So that was actually one factor.
Mm-hmm.
And also multifamily is very challenging to underwrite, as you know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more, I feel, risk with people who are renting their own like living space in terms of default, right? In
Yeah.
terms of not being able to pay their rent.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really, I think, the biggest thing for me was
Mm.
they were difficult to underwrite, and it wasn't quite as cut and dry as commercial space was.
It's true.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a lot more variables, right?
Right.
Totally.
However, if you have someone who's opening up their own business in a commercial space who's really invested in it,
Yeah.
that almost is the same thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Totally.
Yeah.
But commercial deals also, it doesn't matter if they're $3 million or honestly $100 million. They're about as difficult to underwrite as the next, you
Yeah,
know? So I
totally.
figured like, why not try and do bigger deals because they're just as hard for us to get through,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
100%.
Right.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
We're actually under contract on our first. It's commercial.
It's mixed use.
It's mixed.
Apartment
yeah, I was saying
retail.
it's like more
Super.
mixed use is because we want to start going in that direction, but we want to start very small.
Yes. And that's a great idea. And that's a really good way to like
Yeah.
start getting into it is not necessarily being like the sponsor where you're on the hook for the
Yeah.
loan. You can do that, right?
Yeah.
But if you go in with other people and you have an experienced sponsor, like being a limited partner,
Yeah.
seeing how it works, reading the cash flow statements every time you get a distribution,
Yeah.
seeing how the LLC is set up,
Right.
all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and also understanding like what your risk tolerance is, because a lot of people like. I have to be risk averse, right? I would always go for the 12% guaranteed preferred return
Yeah.
over the knock it out of the ballpark
Right.
kind of investment, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But other
Totally.
people, they don't care.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a zero sum game. So,
Totally.
yeah.
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 It's very interesting.
Super interesting.
So, okay, I mean, you're speaking our language as far as real estate investor, but how did you also start doing LLC creation and trust creation? Like, how did that come into play for people?
Well, I saw that a lot of the investors that I was raising money with had absolutely no plan.
Mm.
And they were doing stuff that I felt was exposing them to unnecessary risk or they went for this like platinum plan with somebody and they had the most convoluted, like expensive, weird scheme.
Yeah.
And, with these like, South Dakota, Delaware statutory trusts nested in these, like, I was like, guys, like, you could do this with like 2 LLCs.
Yeah. So they were really complicated.
Yeah. And the other thing was that like people sometimes come out of own their own private island, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Like you don't need an offshore trust if you're like you own like 2 like rental properties.
Yeah.
you know?
Or no rental properties.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's great to start small. You know?
Yeah.
Totally.
But I do find that the riskier the type of investment, the more that it's kind of behooves like people to create these complicated schemes because they think that it's going to protect them. Like a lot of the seminar people say, oh, like if we have this really hard thing, you're going to be insulated from a lawsuit, which is totally false.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Interesting. So it was out of necessity.
It was out of necessity, yeah, and it was actually for my own stuff too.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
It was.
totally.
It really was.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
that's how we initially connected, right?
Yeah.
Was to set up our corporate structure and our trust and all of that. But then it was like, okay, but you're really real estate savvy and knowledgeable. And so I need you to help with that stuff too. Because I don't know if you guys know, we're in real estate.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. A little bit.
And it's funny because your stuff is set up a lot like mine is.
Yeah.
It's a very
Yeah.
it's very similar.
I think, what would you say for that person that it has no assets yet, but it has come from one of those seminars or is in a mentorship where they're like, their mentor has this corporate structure, which was where we kind of came from. I was like, well, I want to set something up similar to this because I know where we're going. But what about those people that are like, I'm just getting started. I don't exactly know where I'm going, but I think I need all of this huge. What would you tell them to start with?
Oh, simply, it depends really what they want to do. If they want to be a passive investor, the kind of the cornerstone of everything is to set up an LLC that will hold your investments, a holding company.
Yeah.
And it may not even be necessary if you're just a limited partner,
Yeah.
but if you keep adding stuff, right, to this LLC, and it's going to grow and grow, you're going to be really happy in about 4 or 5 years when you have like a bunch of properties inside of this LLC.
Right.
It's just going to be much simpler.
Yes.
Yeah.
The other thing is if you have kids, just get a trust. I mean, it's just estate planning. Like the reason that you have quit your job to embark in your real estate journey, or even if you haven't, is probably like your family is like
Totally.
you want a better life for yourself
Yep.
and your kids.
Yes.
And you can't like look over your shoulder and see your kids hanging out and not think, man, I've got to make sure that whatever it is that I am like spending late nights and almost late to baseball games for and arguing with my wife because I'm cranky,
Yeah.
is like, it can't be all for naught, right?
Totally.
Yeah. It has to
100%.
be bulletproof if it's ever needing
That's
to be
right.
bulletproof,
That's right.
I mean, because what we see a lot of the time is people that are kind of stuck in that beginning phase, right?
Yes.
Where they're like, the mentor's telling them they need to have this LLC, this structure, and they're trying to set everything up before they even take any
Right.
kind of action. And what happens is they never end up taking action.
Of course.
Because it's not perfect. It's not set up perfect.
That is a great point. And
Yeah.
that is like a great point for business in general.
Yes.
100%.
Sometimes even if it's not perfect for you, it's not going to be perfect for you in 4 years, right?
Right.
It may not be perfect for you next week, but you have to, I always feel like you have to look at where you are right now
Yeah.
and find the most sensible, cost-effective plan
I agree.
that's going to get you started. And if you have a decent lawyer, they will be able to see what's going to happen in, 6 years. So for example, let's say, you have like, 2 or 3 LLCs that each serve a separate function. You don't need LLCs 2 and 3 right now, but you need LLC number 1.
Right.
Yes.
You can build these things if you have a plan, knowing that these other things, it's like buying a house, right? You buy a starter home. If you
Yeah.
buy a big lot, if you have 2 kids, well, you need to add an addition.
Right.
If you have 6 kids, then you need
Yeah,
to
yeah.
add
Yeah.
A couple
another
additions.
addition. Or you need to start
Or you
again,
need to
right?
buy
Yeah.
a bigger house.
Right, exactly. You need to
Yeah.
buy a bigger house.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, how many have we added on since ours?
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
But
Exactly.
because we laid that solid foundation,
right.
it's so much easier to add on to it versus starting
Exactly.
over.
And that's totally right. So a lot of times when people come in, they've already set up a lot of LLCs and,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh God, I
Yeah.
hate to say this to you, but it's so much easier if we just like burn it down
it
and
down.
And then
rebuild.
rebuild.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
going to be cheaper for you
Totally.
and faster.
Yeah.
But I think to your point, like taking that first step, you just simply have to do it.
Yeah.
You can't be have analysis paralysis
Yes.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes.
You've got to just kind of
I agree.
and don't be afraid to call an attorney. And if the attorney tells you something that sounds ridiculous or way complicated,
Yeah.
or like, why don't you go, hide under a rock and never invest in real estate?
Right.
They're probably not the
Not
right
the right
attorney.
attorney. Yeah, yeah. That's what I was
Right.
gonna say. They're
Right.
not the
Yeah.
right attorney.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that can also be kind of intimidating for people
Yeah.
at the beginning. They're like, when is the right time to get an attorney involved?
Yes.
And,
Oh, that's a
and
super.
I don't
good-
need an attorney yet.
Yeah.
So like, when is there a right time? Is every situation different? You know what I
Every
mean?
situation is different, but there is kind of a right time. Like, people can do a lot of like self-service.
Mm.
Okay. I don't think that every time, you move, you need to call your attorney. But there are times, like, for example, if you are about to spend a lot of money on something,
Yeah.
right? If you're going to make your first investment and you're putting down even $25,000,
Yeah.
okay, that's a lot
That's
of money.
a lot of
A
money.
lot of
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yes.
You should talk to an attorney and just, a lot of attorneys give like free consultations, so they'll talk to you
Yep.
for 15 minutes.
Yes.
Mhm.
I do this thing. I do an hour strategy session.
Yeah.
And I can at least, or other lawyers I'm sure do, they call it a paid consult, I think, or
Yeah.
Right.
something.
Yeah.
Right.
But I sit down with clients and I talk to them for an hour about what might make the most sense right now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And whether they're, again, putting like the horse before the cart, so to
Yeah.
speak, right?
Totally.
Right.
And the other time to do it is if you've quit your job and are going to start a new company, right?
Mm.
A lot of guys are like, I am now ready to invest in real estate. And there are two schools of thought, right? Keep your day job
Yes.
while you pursue your real estate.
Burn the bridge
right?
and go all
exactly.
in.
Or,
Yeah.
go all in.
Yeah.
And if you do burn the bridge and go
Yeah,
all in,
yeah.
look again over your shoulder at your kids playing in the yard and
Mhm.
understand that, like, if you care enough to quit your job and do this, and you have enough confidence,
Yeah.
you don't want to mess it up, right?
Right.
You don't want to
100%.
do it the right way,
Right.
100%.
Right.
And you can like go to like LegalZoom and whatever.
Okay,
and,
that's what I was gonna
right.
point out. Yeah.
and sometimes LegalZoom is great, and
Yeah.
like it really works like 70% of the time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But why on earth would you spend a couple $1,000 or even a couple $100 on something that only works 70%
I
of the
know.
time,
I
right?
wouldn't. Yeah,
Because like then you either have something that after you pass is going to be perfectly fine, or is going to be completely not
Wrong,
okay.
right.
wrong.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it does make sense to spend a little bit of extra
Yeah.
like money
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
doing it right at least the first time.
I agree.
We
Yeah.
It's a get what you pay for situation. So I remember
Completely.
when we were first starting in real estate, we didn't need all the structure that we have
Yep.
now. I just went and started an LLC on my own.
Right.
But I can tell you that I can be very easily found with that LLC that I started on my own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yep.
it's like there's different things for different seasons in life. And I
Totally.
remember when we were setting ours up, I'm like, no, we have to keep that one over there.
Yep.
Because this new one is designed for so many different reasons.
That's
it
right.
was designed for anonymity. It was
Yep.
designed for tax incentives. So it's
Sure.
designed and it's designed for asset protection.
That's right.
You know? So can you kind of touch a little bit on those things? Like,
Yes.
yeah.
And that's a great point, because when you first started out, that thing totally served what you needed.
It did
Totally. It
exactly
served
what
the
it was supposed
purpose.
to
It
do.
was perfect.
It was
And
perfect.
It was like $80 or
Yeah.
something. It
Yeah.
was exactly what you needed, right?
Whatever
Yeah.
I needed to get all the codes,
Right.
the EIN, this, the that.
Yeah. And to be able to even qualify for a hard money loan, we
Sure.
needed an LLC,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely,
So-
sure. And
Yeah.
and you did it, and it worked perfectly.
Yes.
But then, as you think about things like anonymity, for example, or
Yeah.
asset protection,
Yes.
so none of these things are absolutes.
Mhm.
So the way I think of it is you will decrease the chances of somebody like not unlawfully, but like someone without kind of like a reason taking your money or finding out who you are.
Right.
Mhm.
No matter what,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the IRS knows exactly who you
Who you
are
are.
and what you make.
Absolutely.
100%.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And now with the Corporate Transparency Act, the money laundering guys know too at the Department of Treasury.
yes.
Which is crazy. Yeah.
Right.
And we need to talk about
Yeah,
that
we need
later.
to
talk
Yeah,
about
we'll
that.
dig into it for
Yeah.
sure.
Right. So, but with respect to like asset protection, I think there's a responsible way of doing it and a way to avoid your creditors' way of doing it.
Mm.
And the way of avoiding your creditors is, you're going to get sued, so you try and hide assets in a million different
I
places.
think I DM'd you about this. I saw
Yeah.
something right on social
did.
media. I'm like,
Yeah.
what the hell is this guy talking about?
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is very sketchy.
Yeah, this is
Like he's
Right, yeah.
openly talking about
yeah,
this.
yeah,
What
yeah,
is
yeah.
this?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what'll happen is you'll do it, and then a judge will be like
Like-
make you basically disclose your assets and then be mad that
Yeah.
you did something like this, right?
Totally.
So what asset protection does is it separates out you guys from your companies, and it's completely legitimate to do this,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
the key is that you have to operate your businesses this way. You
Got
can
it.
have all the papers in the world, and if you don't follow basic business principles, a judge is going to think, hey,
See right through
it's
it.
your
Yeah.
piggy bank, exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That and so asset protection does help you with that, not just keeping your stuff outside of your business, but your business outside of your own personal stuff. It
Right.
kind of works both ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the anonymity is important in a way because it just prevents like any guy on the street from finding out where you live and what you own.
Right.
And if they really, really, really cared, like if, for example, you've lost a lawsuit and you owe like $1 million to somebody, a judge will sit down with you and the opposing counsel, and you will have to disclose all of your assets
Everything.
under oath, right?
Yeah.
It's, I think, a confession of judgment or something like that.
Right.
And so it's not going to protect you then, but it's going to prevent nosy people. Sorry,
Yeah, like a
from-
Yeah.
random
Exactly.
guy.
Some
yeah.
rando, exactly,
Exact-
looking you up on the internet. or whatever.
100%.
Yeah.
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 Totally.
Exactly.
And so I guess my question is, because everybody has different goals and
Right.
is in different seasons, what's most important?
Mm.
Because I think people ask that question
Like at a
lot.
basic
Like,
level.
yeah, like at a basic, and I think this is going to be a very difficult question to answer.
Yeah.
But should you shoot for anonymity?
It's not something, for example, I personally care about. I don't have my home address on my stuff, but you can probably figure out,
Yeah.
like what David owns
Yeah.
if you really cared. And
Right.
it's not like, whoa, wow, look at all this money David has.
Right.
you know?
Right,
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 right.
right.
And truly for it to be, there are reasons why, like, for example, you're like an NBA player or something, right? Or you are so rich that you don't want anyone to know how many billions of dollars you have. But also you may not want people getting into your business because
Right.
Hawaii is small and people are a little nosy sometimes.
Yep,
Yeah.
100%. Yes,
Yeah.
Niele.
Niele.
Yep, we
Yeah,
have a
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. So anonymity is important for people like that. Less for me, maybe more for you. It just
Yeah.
depends.
Right.
And then I think asset protection is fundamental.
for
And
everyone. Yeah.
There are layers of this, right?
Mm.
There's just basic asset protection, which is keeping your business separate from your personal stuff. And then there are all of these kind of crazy schemes like asset stripping and a lot of those can be used for legitimate purposes, but as you get more and more into the kind of sophisticated,
Yeah.
they get less and less like okay. They get more and more into the realm of you're trying to avoid creditors as opposed to you're legitimately protecting your business.
Right. There's a point where it turns into
Exactly.
yeah. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
And what happens is the only thing that will happen is as you kind of get more into that realm, you just run the risk of a judge saying, "This is, I call, a
Yeah.
bluff here, right?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you spent thousands of dollars doing this for a judge to just be like, "Listen, this is
All
like
this
nonsense."
is BS.
right?
I don't
Exactly.
care. Yeah.
Totally.
So it is really kind of like when you're starting out, I think the most important thing is simply to get yourself organized and to understand what you're investing in.
Yeah.
Like
Ah.
you gotta understand, you gotta, like, as boring as they are, you gotta read the documents, not all of them, but you have to understand how you're going to get paid, when you're going to get paid, when you're not going to get paid,
Mm.
and how long your money is tied up. Because for a lot of real estate investors, even sophisticated ones, they think it's like the stock market.
Yeah.
Right? You
Which
can sell
it's
stock.
not.
It is, ladies and gentlemen, it is not.
Yeah.
right?
100%
You know,
not.
If you need a new roof on your house, and I've gotten calls like this, or like, David, like, my kid's tuition went up. Can I get, no, like, because your interest is tied up in a 5-7 year investment.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that can be done. You can get
Yeah.
bought out, but it's going to be at a deep discount.
Yeah,
that
it's
you're
gonna
not
get
going to
it-
be happy about.
Right. Right.
So that's one really important thing before anyone goes in is to have them really understand the length of time. And if you're doing this, and this is going to get into a securities talk, but
Right.
No, this is
Good.
good.
Yeah.
This is
a good-
good.
Yeah.
if you're getting into something like, you're just like they're borrowing money from you, that's not selling securities. It's a loan, right? It's
Right.
just simply a personal loan.
Yes.
And they're going to get paid X% interest at these intervals, and that's the
Yeah.
story.
Yes.
Right.
A security is when you're paying somebody else, giving them money, and they do all the work, and you get the benefit of whatever it is they've done. So
Got
like,
it.
you know, your buddy's got a pizza place and you think that he's a great pizza place operator and he's got a wonderful idea. And you're like, listen, I don't know how to bake pizzas. I don't know anything about I like to eat pizza.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you $100,000, Bob, and you open up this pizza place. And so Bob knows the books. Bob knows how the thing is operated. He lets you know every now and then what's going on.
Yeah.
But that's a security. I have bought an LLC interest. I have no influence over how that company operates on a day-to-day basis.
Yep.
I may have access to the books, but that's the whole difference. The same thing with real estate, right?
Yep.
If I give you money and I don't know anything, I'm like an accountant or something, even if I'm sophisticated, smart, know numbers, I don't operate the piece of real estate.
Right.
That's where the securities are.
Yeah.
You mentioned LLC interest.
Yeah.
Okay, explain to the common folk what
Oh,
it
yeah.
is an LLC interest is and how that becomes a security and a different area that you might need to be concerned with.
Got it. So an LLC is the ownership, I guess, ownership in an LLC, they call them membership interests or units.
Mm.
And it's like when you have a corporation, they call it stock, right? You have
Yeah.
shares of stock. They just call it units for LLCs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so with the LLC, because it's really the most flexible form of kind of business entity that's most commonly used, especially in real estate.
Yeah.
When you buy a piece of property, if in an LLC, you can have one member, you can have two members, you can have a million members.
Yeah.
And each of those members owns a portion of this LLC.
Yep.
Mhm.
And it usually entitles them to a percentage of the profits
Right.
Yes.
based on the operating agreement, which is basically like the rules.
Right.
So you read the rules, and based on what the rules say, the membership units or interests get paid out a certain amount.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, if you two decide to form an LLC,
Mm-hmm.
you are together as a married couple,
Mhm.
like you buy stuff. You both are involved in a way in this
Yeah.
LLC. You haven't sold each other an interest.
Right.
You
Right.
just happen to be the two owners.
Right.
Yes.
Now, if the three of us get together
Uh-huh.
and the three of us participate in buying, this could happen actually, participate in buying a piece of property.
Let's
Yep.
do
Right,
it.
exactly,
Let's
right,
do
let's
it.
So I do the due diligence and I, argue with lenders. You
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
are contractors. You
Yeah.
handle all this other
Yeah.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
So then we have a joint venture because all
Yes.
three of us are on a regular basis materially adding something to this
Yeah.
thing.
Right,
Right.
100%.
Participation.
Exactly.
Yes.
Participation was not a security.
Yeah.
We have not sold securities. We are giving
Mhm.
like basically sweat equity. We're
Yeah.
putting in this.
Pretty
Yeah. Yeah.
much.
Sweat
Yeah.
equity.
Now, if I say, okay, guys, you love this project, I'm saying, guys, I just give you $200,000, right? Like I have it, right?
Yeah.
$200,000 I'm going to give to you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Then you say to me, okay, like I'm going to give you a percentage of my profits. We've just created a security because
Got it.
someone else is doing work, right?
And,
Exactly. So even though in all of those situations, you got membership units, you got interests, right? In the third example, I have like basically bought into your company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I bought a membership unit or I
And
bought
that's
interest.
where
Right.
it gets tricky.
That's exactly right. Because those things, so a long time ago, there's this thing called the Howey test. And I'm not going to go into it. But
Mhm.
what happened was they had a guy who was basically doing this. He was selling interest in his business to other people. And
Okay.
the SEC said, wait. You are not telling investors everything.
Mm.
Like when you have a publicly registered security, like a stock, for example,
Yeah.
there's a ton of information that Microsoft has to give to the SEC every quarter, earnings reports, all this stuff. And so the government thinks, okay, we vetted this investment really, really well.
Yeah.
So the average person can go and buy this stuff on a stock exchange, no big deal, right?
Right.
They don't need to be special. They can be poor, they can be rich. They know that the investor knows that at least the government is watching over whether this is a solid investment or not, and books are clean.
Right. Like, so it's safe for them to
That's
go and do
correct.
that.
That's
because,
right.
Because we see all this information about it. They report to us all the time. The government's like, yes, I think this is a good thing.
That's right. Like
Yeah.
the SEC is like the watchdog.
Watchdog,
right?
right.
Yeah.
Totally.
Now, you've got a small investment, like any one of my investments, say, for example.
Yeah.
The people that you are dealing with are not real estate, private equity people. They are not developers. They
Right.
are not, don't have,
They're
all-
not full-time investors
Exactly,
that
right.
live, breathe, sleep
they're like
investment.
your cousin or your aunt who has money, wants to make money.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally.
And so the government says, okay, if you do this, you have to disclose the bejesus out of this investment.
Right.
You have to let them know through a private placement memorandum or an offering memorandum. It's like this thick.
Wow.
And it's like, so you've got like the subscription agreement, which is sort of like all the reasons why this is a great investment.
Yeah.
And then you've got the PPM, which is like why this is the dumbest thing you could possibly buy,
Totally.
right?
Here's all your risks.
Here's all your
Yeah.
risks. And it's got everything in it. It's like, the market could be bad. Like the
Right.
ground could fall in, the whole investment is based on David,
Yeah.
securing the loan. If David dies,
Right,
all
right,
this
right.
crazy.
All this stuff.
And so you have to do all these disclosures really carefully, and you can't offer this to just everybody.
Mm.
You can only offer it to
Accredited.
accredited
Accredited
investors,
investors.
which is by statute, and in some cases, you can offer to sophisticated investors.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the difference between accredited and
Got it.
sophisticated?
So accredited means it fits an SEC definition in
Okay.
terms of income, in terms of net worth, right?
Which is usually $1 million.
Exactly.
Right?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And and it's different for people and for LLCs, but they're accredited.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they are really, really affluent.
And they have to prove that they have that net worth.
That's
right?
absolutely right. And when I've done this before, I have made them prove this and
Right.
sign documents and provide. If
And
I don't
there's
know
usually
them.
like a
Yeah.
third party.
They have
vetting
third-party
now,
companies
right?
that do that
Yeah.
too. Yeah,
That's
for
right.
Yeah.
some syndications.
Very, very smart to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
if you're a syndicator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you use a different exemption, right? Exemption from registering with the SEC, because it's a small issue.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You can also include sophisticated investors.
Yeah.
Okay.
What the SEC and state laws say, though, is you can't advertise it like to the general public.
Got
You
it.
have to have a pre-existing relationship with these guys.
Okay.
Right.
And what that really means is they don't just know you. Like, you guys know each other in a business sense. It's not like you go to church together
Yeah.
or you've known
Mm.
each other since you were kids. You have to have really done significant transactions, and you have to document this.
Wow,
Okay, it's
okay.
really important.
Yeah.
So when I have done this for people that are sophisticated investors,
Mhm.
I've worked with them before, like
Yeah.
on 30 deals, or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah,
Like, so I
totally.
know them,
Yeah.
and I'm totally confident that they understand when I explain the risks to them
Right.
that they're they're sophisticated.
Yeah.
And they also happen to be accredited usually.
Yeah,
Right,
u-
right,
yeah,
right.
So-
usually, right.
But you have to be careful about advertising.
Yeah.
You cannot go on the internet
Yeah.
and say, I'm selling interests in my private equity fund.
Right.
And there are guys who are not, you don't know if they're sophisticated or accredited or anything.
Totally.
Right. And so that's really the main, I guess, issue with it is you can do it, but you have to be prepared to do it properly. And that is expensive.
Yeah.
That's a $20,000 minimum
To
endeavor.
set it up right.
To set it up correctly.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it is almost to a point where I have another attorney who does just private placement memorandums in New York that does my PPMs for me now,
Mm.
because it is complex to a point where I don't want
Want
to
to
be
be
doing
involved.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not going to do it right. He
Yeah.
does
Yeah,
it
yeah,
all
yeah.
day, and he
Yeah.
follows these
That's his
SEC
niche.
rules.
That's
his
what he
niche.
knows.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so what about private money lenders and private money loans against short-term assets or short-term fix and flips? Because that's how majority of investors are funding these short-term projects. Like,
Yes.
what would you say about, because they're not selling securities,
Right.
they're not selling equity positions
That's
in their
right.
LLCs. So, like, how does somebody do that correctly?
So you hit the nail on the head, right?
Yes.
They are not securities if you are giving a stated rate of interest, no
Mhm.
matter what happens with this investment.
Right.
If you sell that thing for triple, they still get 12%.
Right.
Yeah.
You sell that thing, you lose all of your money.
You still
still
pay
get
the
12%,
12%.
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So regardless of how hard the sponsor works,
Uh-huh.
they still get the same thing, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Then it's sort of, you've kind of carved out in most circumstances, and the big disclaimer here is it really depends, and I'm giving broad generalizations.
Very
Yes.
broad.
Very
Yeah.
broad.
This is not legal
This-
advice,
Yeah.
but
yes.
but you can lend money to people and it's fine.
Yeah.
And in both situations, the vital thing is credibility, not just like whether or not they're sophisticated or not, or you're borrowing money on an investment that you think is good or bad. If you not mess up, that's not really the right word, but if you don't follow through on your
Yeah.
promises in a small community, or you have a couple of deals where the deals you say, listen, I'm showing you an underwriting, and when we sell, based on my underwriting, everyone's going to get even 5%,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I'm estimating it.
Yeah.
The minute it's 4%, your investors are going to be really annoyed with you. And
Yeah.
it's not just that they're going to come after you. It's that they're going to see you in like times.
Foodland. Times.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Especially here in Hawaii.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or you're going to be, Auntie's going to be at Thanksgiving dinner and she's like, where's that
Yeah.
$50,000?
What happened?
You lost my money.
You
Yeah.
lost my money. And nobody wants to lose their investors' money.
No.
Like, I can't imagine what that's like, like it is not the way that most real estate investors start. And really, I don't think most real estate investors have that sinister, I don't
No.
care quality to them.
Right.
They
No.
really do care.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
they really, because if they do well, then it shows that they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that's another thing, is don't bite off another piece of advice. Don't bite off more than you can
More
chew.
than you can chew.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because
Totally.
sometimes I see this with investors. There's this little, or the deal makers, there's this teeny tiny profit margin in there.
Mhm.
And one boiler that goes,
Disintegrates
it
all
disintegrates.
of it. Yes.
Boom.
Your contractor decides to move to like Guam,
Mm.
and you have this like fook in the schedule, and your loan is like 3 weeks. Your whole deal is blown, right?
Yeah.
You gotta
Totally.
build in a good,
Yeah.
a bad, and
Yeah.
a best case scenario, all
Yeah.
three. You know,
Yeah.
you really do.
Totally.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you wrote here, like, always stress test any asset with a good financial model. It's pretty
Yes.
much what you're talking about.
That's exactly it. And if you don't have a good financial model, get one. And if you don't know how to make one, hire somebody that knows how to do it.
does.
Yeah.
Because the worst possible thing, it's like a cognitive bias. You know, like when you know the stock market's down and you don't want to look at your 401k, or
Yeah.
like you're on fumes in your savings account.
You don't want to look at it.
You don't want to, but
Yep.
you just got paid from the closing. You wake up, I'll just check my bank account
Yeah.
today, And it's the same thing with an underwriting. It's like you're about to start one of your first deals and it is bad.
Mm.
And it is not what you wanted, but
Mhm.
you're like, oh, do I really know? I can't let people know that I don't know. And
Totally.
that is really setting yourself up for
Mm.
just a bad experience in real estate. You don't
Yeah.
have to have that, right?
Totally.
Right.
You don't,
Totally.
It's okay to lose money because people do lose money, but you should lose money for good reasons.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I totally get that. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to reiterate one more time to
Yes.
drive it home for the people in the back.
Okay.
The difference between a joint venture and a security
Yes.
is
Your level of active participation.
Okay.
Got
That's
it.
going on.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really the general rule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So joint venture, ton of participation activity normally from
Yep.
all parties.
That's right.
Securities, somebody just giving money and they're sitting back.
Well,
They
and
are
you-
a passive
They're
investor.
passive
and
investor.
you're selling off it fractional interest,
That's true. Yes.
Yeah.
right?
And there's like pooled money with the
Yes.
security.
Right.
too.
So I guess a different way is, what is the primary difference between a security and private money lending?
Well, with the private money lending, it's simply just you're loaning money.
It's a
Yeah.
loan.
It's a loan. You're giving them money. They have no ownership interest in whatever it is, even if it's secured, right?
Yes.
Because all a security interest means is I've loaned you money, and if you don't pay me, I'm going to take what you have.
Yeah.
You can't take it now. You don't
Yeah.
own it.
I
Right.
have to default first.
Right, exactly. And then
Yeah.
you have to go in front of a judge
Yep.
Yes.
and get
Right.
get a lien, even if a mortgage is placed
Yeah.
on the asset.
Yep.
Mhm.
Like, you are not, like, the loan is not a security, because it's like your
Yeah.
payment doesn't matter how well or badly the investment does, right?
Right.
Yes.
Totally.
Okay, so
That
that's
makes
the main
sense.
difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, everybody and their mom does private money loans in this real estate industry in order to, either stabilize an asset or
That's
fix
right.
and flip an asset. But the main difference is
Yes.
fractional interest, honestly.
Yeah. And at the same time, I think a lot of mentors really talk a lot about, like, use other people's money, use
Yeah.
other people's
OPM,
money, right?
Right.
OPM,
Sure.
OPM. What I don't think they do a very good job at is express the responsibility
Yes.
that comes with, using other people's money, right?
There is a massive, and it's kind of weird as a lawyer to say this, I guess, but almost a moral responsibility.
Yep.
Someone has entrusted you with the money that's going to help pay for their kids, like college, food.
Yep.
Doesn't matter, their next car, right?
Mhm.
They have worked their butt off to make that.
Right.
And you should use other people's money because, honestly, if you're just starting out, you probably don't have the capital.
Mhm.
Mhm.
However, what you want to do as you get more, I guess, sophisticated is to build credit for yourself so that you can go in to Bank of America or an insurance company, they're wonderful lenders, and say, listen, I have a net worth of $15 million. I need a $500,000 loan. I need a $2 million loan on
Yep.
this commercial asset.
Mhm.
And then you show up with your portfolio. Here's my track record.
Mhm.
Lend me the money, bank.
Yes.
Mm.
And it is preferable to do it that way because you are A, not paying a lot of interest on it,
Right.
and B, it's a bank, not your auntie, right?
100%.
You know,
Yep.
Mm.
and,
Totally.
and if something happens, your auntie is not going to be crying because her life savings is gone.
It's gone.
The
right.
Bank of America just will be the Bank of
Yeah.
America, Like they're not going to be like
Totally.
sad.
Totally. Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I do. I always make sure, like, when we're talking to people about it, like, stress the responsibility that
Yeah.
comes with it. You know what I mean?
There
Yeah.
really is. And
Mhm.
especially in a small community,
Totally.
Yes.
because it almost like looks bad, right? Like, oh, they probably knew this thing or they don't know what they're doing,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Right.
reputation is everything.
Absolutely.
It's everything. And then, like you said, I think in the beginning, I think it's very smart to do OPM route, right? You're taught that you can get an infinite return that way.
Sure.
You can do a lot more volume if that's your plan or your goal. But yeah, like you said, responsibility isn't put on to that
Yeah.
student learning about OPM as much as it should be.
And also don't think that just because you lent them money and they don't have a security interest in the property, they're not going to come after you and sue you.
Right. Yeah.
Because if they have enough resources and there are enough people involved, they will all get together
Yeah.
and it will, and for a reason, right? Because
Right.
they'll show a pattern of reckless behavior, whatever it is.
Yep.
Right.
You don't need to get yourself into that situation. Just make sure you can pay them back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's the responsibility. It
Yep.
is it is other people's money.
Yes.
Right.
It's even more important than your own money.
It
in a
is.
way,
Yeah.
It's
right?
I
way
agree.
more
Yeah,
important than your own
absolutely.
money. You can lose your own money all day long and twice on Sunday, but you can't lose
Yeah.
other people's
Yeah,
money, But that's
absolutely.
where it goes back to, I think, a whole nother podcast conversation of deal underwriting and understanding how to buy good assets at the
That
beginning.
is key.
Yeah.
That's absolutely key.
Totally.
Because if you look at like a broker's underwriting and your own underwriting, the broker's underwriting should make it so you'd have to, again, be stupid not to buy the asset.
Right.
And your underwriting should make it look like you'd have to be an idiot to buy the asset.
Mm.
And that somewhere in between is the
Is-
truth.
Is
Yeah.
the truth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
I love
1000%
that.
agree.
I love that.
Yeah.
Another thing that you've done for us to kind of transition the conversation are leases.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you built out. You said you're in the tech industry
Yep.
or was.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like you've made it so simple for me to log into a database,
Cool.
enter in pertinent information.
Templates there.
Yep.
And then
ready
it
to go.
spits me out a rental agreement that I know
There you
is
go.
good.
This is one of my next products I'm kind of doing. So I'm
Yes.
really
Yeah.
interested in productizing legal services again, because a lot of stuff isn't like rocket science
Yeah.
and it can be templatized.
Yes.
It's
Right.
taking standard forms and making sure that your form is the same
Yes.
every time you do it.
Yes.
And you know when there is a situation where you can't use the standard form.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, because even if you can use it 9 times out of 10, there may be this one weird situation where
It doesn't work.
it doesn't work.
Right.
But absolutely, leasing is really important
Mm-hmm.
because your lease also is like, especially in a commercial context, but also in a residential context, tells you what you're going to get paid and for how long, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a contract.
Yes.
It is.
And
Yeah.
that
is.
that right there is like the key information. And if it's a commercial deal, then it also tells you what's going to chip away at your money, like
Mhm.
operating
Mm.
expenses,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Or taxes, what's going to be reimbursed by the tenant,
Yeah.
all that stuff is built into the lease.
Right.
And that truthfully has been what's been killing a lot of landlords recently, commercially, is they don't have pass-through operating expenses. They've been footing the bill for the operating expenses
Mm.
because it's easier for the tenant to understand, right? They
Got
pay
it.
one amount of money, there's not CAM charges or anything
Right.
tacked
right,
on.
right. Yeah.
And so-
Crazy.
And what happens now is with inflation, like what used to be like, $50 for an hour
Yeah.
for this janitorial service is now triple.
Yeah.
Your landscapers are more
$150,
right, $150
yeah.
bucks.
And now you're negative.
Right, and now you're negative. And it's not because the rent was bad. It's because your OpEx got out of control. And so what you have to do then is cut services, and then your tenants complain. Because now
Yeah,
the place
and then the
looks
building
disgusting.
run down.
Right,
Yeah.
Right.
So
Well,
these things like leasing, I should just do a whole thing on leasing.
You
It's
Yeah, I
so
know.
important. Commercial leasing
Totally.
is so,
I
so
know.
important.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, just contracts in general.
Yes.
Having a third pair of eyes that can basically rip the thing apart.
Yep.
Add in things that are missing, and then create a situation where it protects you as a client, but also is a win-win for
That's
both
right.
parties. I think is crucial. So I think I've sent you every single contract. that I
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm like,
Exactly.
hey, rip this thing to shreds, but I need you to templatize them so I
Yeah.
can just enter in information.
And that's that's the totally coming. In fact, I have
I
a
know.
vendor lined up,
yeah.
and I think it's going to be a really, really useful thing for people, because also, like, if there's a mistake in one of your leases
It
Yeah.
can be very detrimental.
and you make it over and
and
over
and over
again,
Yeah, because you use the
because-
same thing.
or you can't find the right form, right?
Yeah.
Because
Totally.
Sally added something, but it wasn't saved to the drive, and
Yeah,
then,
oh,
so
God.
everything is like kind of disordered, right?
Yeah.
But not even like just leases. We're talking about purchase and sale agreements,
All of it.
promissory notes,
Oh, God, yeah.
mortgage deeds.
Yep.
What else? I mean, like independent contractor agreement.
Independent
Oh,
contractor
yeah.
agreement, contractor lien waivers, all
All
of
of
these
this
things can
stuff.
absolutely be standardized, because
Yeah.
99% of the time you're dealing with like a wash, rinse, repeat kind of deal,
Right.
right? Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I have a question about that. Because a lot of these mentorships, especially for people in Hawaii, happen outside of Hawaii,
Right.
and a lot of these mentors
we're hoping to
offer.
change.
Right, we
Good.
are.
Good.
They offer their standard agreements,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
in the mentorship.
Yeah.
I've seen them.
How
yeah.
important? Yeah, you've seen them.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. How important is it for you to have somebody in your state, an attorney that is familiar with the laws of your state,
Look
in
at
your
those.
state,
Right.
look at those agreements before you use them?
That's wow. That's like the $10 million question.
Yeah.
Like there's a purchase agreement out there that has Arizona law all over
Yes,
it.
yeah,
Everybody
yeah.
has it. and I'm
Everybody's-
so sick of this.
all
thing.
the gurus
Stop
come from-
using this
Yeah.
thing.
And we
Right.
sent them
Good,
all
yes.
to you,
Yeah,
right?
we
God,
did.
I've seen this like
Every guru is
I
in
know,
Arizona.
I
That's
know,
why.
and it's,
So
oh God, I mean, I'm sure it's fine for Arizona, but
Yeah.
property transfer happens really differently there, right?
Yeah.
Oh
and,
gosh.
And you're better off using the HAR form, honestly, because
Mm.
it is a decent, although dense, standard purchase
Yes.
agreement, right?
yeah,
So it is very important to have one time, if you're going to do a lot of purchase deals,
yeah,
have somebody give you a better form and walk you through the form.
got it.
So you know when you should use it and when you shouldn't use it.
yeah,
It's not rocket science, but if nobody walks you through the state-specific form, you're never going to know.
right.
For example, in the forms thing that I'm building now, there's a little question mark. You click on it, it gives you a little bit of information.
Oh, that's so cool.
In fact, there may
Oh,
even
God.
be me explaining it.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And your
As-
face should
Let's go.
pop
Exactly. My
up.
face will pop up,
Yeah.
right? Explaining it, like pointing at things.
Yeah.
Because you do it like a couple of times and you don't need the little, eye
Yeah.
icon.
Yeah.
But the
yeah.
first few
Exactly.
times, you really should have that. And it'll give you a couple of like warnings, like when your spidey sense should start tingling,
Right.
that you need to contact your lawyer. Like,
Yes.
this is
Mm.
something that's unusual. Or
Right.
and you develop that over time, right?
Yes,
You
as
develop that
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're
exactly.
like,
But in the
"Mm."
beginning, you don't necessarily.
No.
Mhm.
And it's always good to like phone a friend in those circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I
I
remember
agree.
we were under contract on a commercial building out of state, and we were going to do a joint venture
Right.
with us and then two of our friends. And I brought you in because I was like, my spidey senses feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
something's
Yeah.
weird here.
Yeah.
And you're like, yup, rip this up. This is weird. No,
Right, right,
no,
right, yeah.
no. And I was like,
Yeah.
yep, see. And then we ended up falling, like we canceled.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it was crazy. Like
Yeah.
it was not
Didn't
even.
make sense.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
all.
Well, and they were just trying to do some weird stuff.
And that's a big thing too, is like people think that they can get around the standard forms. And there's a reason these forms are standard.
yeah,
Like if you think you're clever and have thought of like a brand new way of calling this lease like a, special agreement or something,
right,
and
right.
we won't be, it's a lease, like
Yeah.
people have
Yeah.
thought of this
Yeah.
before, right?
yeah,
Don't-
yeah, yeah.
oftentimes-
Everybody's
right.
thought of it, mostly
Right.
everything already.
It's
Yeah,
way
it's been
easier-
tried.
It's easier
Yeah,
to comply,
Yeah.
like just try and
Yeah.
like fit the
Totally.
mold because there are
Yeah.
ways around it.
What is this new Corporate Transparency Act? We're getting a lot of questions about it. Main questions are, what is it? Do I need to do it?
Well, the answer is I'll explain what it is. And
Yes.
you probably need to do something because a federal court just a couple days ago, I think, ruled that it was unconstitutionally broad.
Wow.
So,
okay.
Oh.
I mean,
You never
so
know.
You never know.
Things
We
could be
will have to
changing.
do. Everyone will have to comply eventually.
Yeah.
Right now, for LLCs that were formed before January 1st, 2024, you need to, over the next year, disclose the beneficial owner information of
Okay.
your LLC. And
Okay.
the reason that you have to do this is it is really easy to launder money, I think, through LLCs.
Yeah.
Because what happens is if you create all these nested LLCs, nobody has any idea where the money is going.
Mm.
And the Treasury Department is really concerned about like not just financial crimes, but like arming terrorists and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
totally.
it's very serious.
That's what's
Right.
behind this
That's what's behind
whole
it,
thing.
right.
Yeah.
But it's so broad reaching because almost everybody in real estate has these LLCs, right?
Yep.
You said nested LLCs.
Yeah.
What are nested LLCs?
So if you have an LLC and another LLC is a member of that LLC and another LLC is a member of that LLC, that's a member of that, then it's almost like those Russian dolls, right? You know what I mean? Like,
The big one turns
That was
Exactly,
such a
right.
good visual.
Yeah. So that's really what nested LLCs
Yeah, it
are,
makes
like
sense.
Russian dolls.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So anyway, what the CTA tries to do is it makes you disclose who at the end of the day is a beneficial owner.
Who's on the very inside?
Exactly.
of
Who's
the
the
Russian,
exactly
tiny-
Yeah.
exactly who's
Yeah.
the littlest like
Yeah.
Russian like
Russian
Doll,
grouchy
yeah.
Russian lady
Yeah.
inside the, yeah,
Like a
so it's
little
frowning and
itty bitty one.
and so that because that's the person who's going to basically get the money, the benefit from it.
Mm.
Yeah.
And the reason the government wants to know that is they're the people that are basically benefiting. They're the
Right.
beneficial owners. The trick is figuring out who is a beneficial owner.
Mm.
And in most cases, like if my wife and I have an LLC, well, the beneficial owners are me and my wife, whatever.
Right.
Right.
Like 5 minutes, you go on the website, you
Right.
disclose
You can
who
see
we
it.
are. Right. It's
Right.
very, very simple.
Right.
You have to, I believe, also enter in some ID, like a driver's license.
Right.
But this
some-
information is not like public in a public database. That was one of the reels you
Ah.
sent me.
Ah.
It's not like I can go and look up people's BOI.
Yeah.
On the
Ah,
internet.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only people that are allowed to really do that, to the best of my understanding so far, are number one, like law enforcement agencies, right?
Okay.
Like financial crimes,
Right.
Department of Treasury, and banks if they suspect that you are part of like a money laundering scheme.
Some kind of a scheme,
Yeah.
illegal.
Right, that's
scheme.
right.
Yeah.
But it's not like you can just go onto like the DCCA website and see the
And
the
see
BOI.
it all.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So you don't need to be that
Alarmed.
alarmed. I mean, if you don't trust the government, then too bad. You
Yeah.
know, like they want to they want to know
Go
this.
to a
Yeah.
different
Right.
country.
Exactly right. Exactly
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or yeah. But unfortunately, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
And the requirement also has it says stiff penalties, right? So there's
Yeah, like
prison,
really stiff penalties. I've heard. Yeah.
prison time. Yeah.
Totally.
And the question is really, if you forget to fill out your BOI,
You're gonna go to prison.
they're going to really come and no,
I
they're
know.
not. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I think they really want to target are people who habitually like don't heed the warning of the government to file the information in the
Yeah.
future and they are suspected of not complying, and it's
Yeah.
an expensive pain in the neck for the government to hunt them down and find out kind of where the money is.
Totally.
That's I think why they put in such stiff penalties. I mean, I don't know. I have no idea how they're going to enforce it.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah,
But-
you mentioned it got overturned or was unconstitutional or
Yeah.
something.
So
okay.
there was a court first, and I honestly, this is me glancing at my
Yeah.
Apple News.
Yeah.
But a court in Alabama, I think it was a state court, maybe it was the state Supreme Court, said it was unconstitutional because it was, I think, it was
Too
worded
broad.
too broadly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it required too much information or something to that effect. And then
Uh-huh.
a federal court, which is the important court you want because it's a
Yes.
federal law,
Yes.
Right.
said, hey, we believe this is unconstitutional. So what will happen is the law is still in effect, but it may be appealed to the Supreme Court, and the government may stay enforcement of the law until they find out.
They
Or
figure
like,
However,
it out.
or like refine it.
they may have to refine
Yeah.
it, right? They
Yeah.
may
Be
send it
more
back to Congress.
specific, yeah.
Exactly. And that's
Yeah.
probably what will happen. So
Mhm.
truthfully,
Interesting.
it's not, if you only have a couple LLCs, it's really not that hard to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And I give clients, actually, this is a great example of giving your clients instructions on how to do it themselves.
Mm.
You don't necessarily need to pay an attorney to go in and file your BOI report for you.
Yeah.
David,
However,
I need you to file ours for us.
yes, but it's okay. If you do, like that's cool too, right?
Right. But you don't
like,
have to.
you don't
have
Right.
to.
Right.
Exactly.
But
And a
I
lot
do
of people-
don't add something
Right.
else to my plate.
That's exactly why. Like people, that's a good reason to hire somebody. Like, and my paralegal will do it, and
Yeah.
it's not going to be like a
Yeah.
lawyer's fee to
I
do
know.
it.
Totally.
But I have
Totally.
clients like that too. They're like, I don't want to handle my registered agents. I don't want to have anything to do with
I
it.
know.
And that's cool because
Yeah.
you know, at least with us, it'll get
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Well, it's just at different levels. If you're at a certain level, then yeah, you should probably pay someone to do it. But if you're not, and you're starting out, it's okay to do it
You
yourself.
can totally do it
Yeah.
yourself too, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You have one
yeah.
or two entities, it's like, 10 minutes. But if you have a lot of entities, it's a pain
It's
in
a
the
pain
neck.
in the
It's a
neck. Yeah.
pain
It takes
in
too
the
much
neck.
time. What's the opportunity
Or if you
cost?
have
And
all
that's
these
it.
little
Opportunity
Russian
cost.
dolls,
Exactly.
you know.
That's totally true, right? It's
Yeah,
true,
yeah.
right?
Totally.
Did you pay for all the Russian dolls or not?
Exactly.
Right.
It's so funny.
But I mean, I know you've said this before. You say that a good lawyer should be able to tell you that you don't need a lawyer or you need
Yes.
a lawyer.
Yeah.
right?
Ah.
Yeah.
Can you explain?
Yeah, I mean,
Yes,
if
yeah.
you're getting, you asked a lawyer and they're telling you need a lawyer for every single thing, they might not be the right lawyer,
Ah.
They're
right?
probably the wrong
They just
lawyer.
want
Yeah.
money.
That's exactly it, right? They're the lawyers that give good lawyers a bad reputation
Yeah.
Mm.
because your lawyer is meant to solve your problem. That's all they're meant to do,
Right.
right? They happen to do it through like usually advice and papers.
Yes.
And that's
Totally.
another important point is you shouldn't pay your lawyer based on the papers they give you. It should be based on their advice and their brain and their experience, right?
100%.
But if a lawyer thinks, oh, well, we need to look at every possible problem because they lack the experience, right?
Mm.
Then you probably you may not want to use that lawyer. A lot of times I've told potential clients, listen, why don't you just call your neighbor and talk it through? Okay. Like you don't need me to write you like a 10-page letter
Right,
about your
right.
fence,
Yeah.
right? And spend all this money. Just let's talk. I mean, I know
Right.
you hate the guy and he's a jerk, but
Right.
sometimes, and really 99% of the time, this happens a lot with tree issues. If you have this is a
man.
very
Yeah.
common problem.
Oh my
Sometimes
gosh.
if you guys just try and mend relationships, it's like being married, right? Like
Wait.
sometimes you apologize.
How did you know about one of our projects?
Yeah.
That's
I
a
know. That's
issue.
right when you said tree issue, I looked over at
Right.
you like, oh my gosh.
Every person in Hawaii has a tree issue.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
I've
horrible.
had them. Like
Oh, that's
all my clients have had them.
It's
Yeah.
funny, but yeah, a lot of the times
yeah.
things can just be talked out.
Right,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's and you don't need to pay an attorney to do it.
Mm.
Because the one thing I don't do is I don't like write threatening letters when they're not warranted. When I think that
100%,
like
yeah.
basic, human decency can resolve this. Also, sometimes a website can answer your questions.
Yeah.
True.
Look at this. Look at the CTA, for example.
Mhm.
Like the Department of Treasury has. I could write legal memos to all of my clients and charge them for it about the
Yeah,
CTA. But you
easy.
can also go to
and do it
and do it yourself and look at the website because it's got a decent explanation.
Yeah, it
Ah.
tells
right?
you exactly what it is.
Okay,
yeah.
so what are
Yeah.
some common situations where you think that you should use an attorney?
Okay. Well, you should use an attorney, I think, if you, again, number one, are about to spend a lot of money
Okay.
and there's a lot of money at risk. I think if you want to set something up, if it involves your kids, as weird as it sounds,
No,
Yeah.
heck no. You don't mess
Yeah.
with the kids.
you
Like,
don't mess with your kids.
No.
Because like when I was single, like I could care less what I spent money on, what I
Right.
did, what I
Right.
ate. But now that I have children, like everything I do, that's my big why. You know, talk
Yeah.
about your big why.
Totally.
Everyone's got a different big why.
Yeah.
For most people, the big why is their children.
Yeah.
So if it involves your kids, you probably want to set it up right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Especially if you have a kid with special needs or a
Mm.
spouse with special needs,
Yep.
Mhm.
you definitely want to make sure that they're protected.
Mhm.
Totally.
If also you have something that's really, really important in your life, like a family property, which I could go into,
I'm
over and over
sure.
again.
Sure, yeah.
Because sometimes it does make sense to sell the family property, especially if you have 8 brothers and sisters and they're all going
Yeah.
to fight over it.
Yep.
But if there's something that's really valuable, and you can't figure out how to solve it yourself, you should call an attorney, and your attorney should do a couple things. I usually give people like a self-service option, and I'm like, you can read this stuff and figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay. It might take you 10 years, but you can figure it out.
Yeah.
And you're perfectly capable of reading and writing. And,
Yeah.
another option is that's like, the good, better, best, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
The second option is this will help you now and is a Band-Aid. These are the things you can't do with it, but these are the things this might be well enough for you, And then this is like the Cadillac, right? And you don't, again, 95% of the time when people are starting out, they don't need that third option. The
Right.
good option is perfectly fine. And most people pick the good option anyway,
Yeah.
right?
Totally.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
it's true. Whenever it involves your kids or a lot of money, or if it's keeping you up at night, I'm not kidding. That's another thing. You should never, ever lose sleep over a real estate investment.
Yeah.
It's a bad reason to be awake at night.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have a question or something's been bothering you, or you think something isn't right about an agreement,
Taking up
Yeah.
too much headspace.
Taking up
or
too much
it's
headspace,
giving
exactly.
you anxiety because you just need to talk it through.
that's right.
You know, because I feel like us as investors, we take mitigated risk, right?
That's right.
And we're always trying to make educated decisions. So I think if it's taking up so much space in your brain because you don't know the possibility over here, then you
Yes.
should probably talk to a lawyer.
100%.
I've had a lot of clients come in and they're so worried about their structure, right? And they think, I need this. And the more why questions I ask, like, well, why do you think this? Why is
Yeah.
this bothering you? Why do you think this is better than this? What do you know about this? And the more why questions you ask, sometimes the answer is really simple. Sometimes the answer is like, I need a will. And then the response is no, that is completely like the last thing you need. But we have to talk for 15 minutes,
Right.
right? Before we go through and figure out what's really going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
So-
Totally.
And you usually find that it's unrelated in any way.
Yeah, sometimes it is. No, sometimes it is like, I'm worried about what's going to happen if I
Yeah.
pass away. Well, obviously an estate plan is what we're going to be talking about.
Exactly.
So
But
fun.
sometimes like the way to get there isn't what you think it is at first.
Yeah, there's
you
a
know?
different way to get there.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned this checklist. Is there a checklist you've learned to use? The 4 tools I use to get in touch with anyone. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's
Yes.
something else.
So like I have like, I guess, good ways of working with your lawyer.
Oh,
Love that.
okay.
Let's
Yes,
do
this
that.
is good.
This is how to get the most bang for your buck.
Okay.
oh,
Perfect.
love it.
Okay, so the first thing is when you go in, be open-minded about the solution. Okay. You, like we just talked about, what you think might be the right answer isn't necessarily the right answer, right? And it might be really different, but sometimes people don't want to do the next thing, which is be honest and dig deep, right?
Mm.
They don't want to tell me everything
Yeah.
because they're afraid, oh, if I tell David everything, I'm going to get a big legal bill,
Yeah.
which is a really dumb reason not to talk to your attorney, right?
100%.
But what you're afraid of is that it's not a dumb reason necessarily, I guess, because if you are the kind of lawyer that is like, oh, like the bigger the problem, the bigger the dollar signs and the the cartoon, right?
Yeah.
That is absolutely the wrong lawyer for you.
Right.
You have to tell the lawyer everything
Everything.
because it is so much easier and usually cheaper and faster to fix it now or know about it now than in 3 months after we spent all this money taking this other
And
direction.
they're like, oh, well, there's
Yeah.
actually this one rock we didn't overturn. And
Right.
it like changes the
it
entire
completely
situation.
changes it. Sure.
Right.
Oh, I didn't tell you. Like I
Oh.
lent him $100.
Right.
I must have left this out or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, you had contact
Oh.
with this guy and
Yeah.
how did this
Yeah.
work?
Yeah,
And
right.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you tell even stuff you're embarrassed about,
I think
honestly,
that's what it
Yeah.
is, though, right?
Yeah.
Like most of the time, people are embarrassed or there's just fear and anxiety
Yeah.
and shame.
Judgment.
Around,
It is.
judgment. It's
Yeah.
judgment.
And honestly, like if you are telling me something, there's almost 100% chance someone else has had exactly the same thing
issue.
happen to them.
Yeah.
Like they're embarrassed because they made a boneheaded investment decision.
or like they made
Right.
a bad decision.
Right.
Now they're in a
Of
bad
course they
situation.
did. And that's my job is to help them get out of the bad, because everybody makes bad decisions.
yeah.
And I've made we've all made bad
we all
decisions,
make
right?
mistakes.
Totally.
Yeah.
There's
We're
absolutely
human.
no
We
shame,
do.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to be honest and dig deep and really think about what your goals are and why you're coming in. Like, why do you need to talk to a lawyer now?
Yeah.
Like, why didn't you talk to a lawyer last week? Or why didn't you put it off, any longer?
Yeah. What's
Yeah.
pressing now?
Exactly. The second thing is be as organized as you can.
Mm.
So you don't want to pay your lawyer to put the facts in order for you if you want me to write you a letter. Or if you have documents, right? It's way better for you to come in and just put them in like a date order or something.
Yeah.
Because you've now saved my paralegal time, you saved yourself billable time, and I can hit the ground running. If you have for example, you want me to do a deal, right? Document a deal. You've got all of the deal points and bullets for me. And then I can point out what you've missed. And before we even put pen to paper, I can kind of help you and your business
Totally.
There's a
process.
strategy
Yeah.
already.
Exactly.
Mm.
Drafting the document for me is not helpful
Yeah.
because I've done my own documents and so I know what's in them.
Yeah.
So it's way cheaper and faster for me to use my template than it is for me to
Totally.
Yeah.
fix up yours, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you're,
I like this one.
I
Your
do.
lawyers are, and
Yeah.
I can thoroughly attest to this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think about my wife this way, right? Because she calls me out when I am not doing something that is true to myself, right?
Yeah.
And your lawyer is like a real friend in that I am going to call you out if you are going to do something that I don't think is in your best interest.
Right.
I'm not judging you. I'm
Yeah.
like taking all the experience and all the bad stuff I've seen happen. I'm just warning you, right?
Yeah.
It's like, even it's like, you have a friend who's always going out with the wrong person, right?
Mhm.
And they divorced this guy and
Yeah.
now they're kind of going out with the guy who's
Yeah.
just like the guy.
Right,
And
Yeah.
they go
like,
back.
Yeah.
red flags.
Right. You don't want to be like, hey, keep doing this. This is great, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But if you're
Yeah.
kind of like not a real friend, you're going to be like, oh, isn't this nice? I'm so glad you're dating
great.
again,
Yeah,
right?
good job. Yeah.
If you're a real friend,
totally.
you're like, what are you doing?
Yes.
This is so
Yes.
dumb, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what a lawyer should do.
Absolutely.
A lawyer should bring a different perspective that you're not thinking about
Yes.
and show you the red flags and talk through them.
Without
Yeah.
making you feel stupid or wrong, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because you're not a lawyer. Like that's why I go to my accountant and my accountant tells me stuff all the time. I'm not an accountant. I
Yeah.
don't know that I was
yeah.
characterizing this thing
Whatever.
or whatever
Wrong.
it is.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Right.
I
Yeah.
know.
That's
Yeah.
why you pay them because they
Yes.
have a lot of experience in this one little
Oh,
thing,
that
right?
brings up just like a side caveat of like making sure that your attorney, your real estate attorney, and whatever is talking to or is at least able to talk to your CPA.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Oh
All
my
of the time.
gosh.
When I get heavily involved with a client, I require them now to have a CPA.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Because if I have one word of advice, it has nothing to do with the law. After this, it's get an accountant.
Yes.
Like
Yeah,
more,
totally.
more than anybody else.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the person on your
They're
team
like
you
your
want.
best friend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Because if you don't know your numbers, your business will sink.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many operating agreements you have.
Well,
you
and
know?
a lot of times your numbers can kind of put you in a weird legal situation that you
Absolutely.
didn't even think about. Like you have to make sure your corporate structure and your financial structure is working together.
That is correct.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Could not be put better.
What is this scope of work?
Oh, so scope of work is like when you go in and you and your attorney figure out what you need the lawyer to do.
Yeah. Okay.
If you say, okay, David, I just need A, B, and C, and you guys agree, okay, we're going to just do A, B, and C. But as we go along, it really is A, B, C, D, E, and
E,
F.
F, G, H. Yeah.
And we've agreed to a flat fee, say, okay?
Uh-huh.
What happens is you think, yay, I got all this free legal service from my lawyer. What your lawyer is thinking is, I am going to put you at the bottom of my
priorities.
priorities.
Totally.
Because sometimes lawyers get busy. There are other reasons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Emergencies come up, but
Right.
because I am now working for free,
Right.
okay,
Mm.
and I have to pay my kids and
I-
feed my kids, pay my staff.
Yep,
Right.
It's
yep,
unfair.
yep.
Right. Right.
The other thing about a scope of work is if a lawyer says, oh, we only need A, B, and C, and it really is much more involved and you're hourly, and then you keep getting these massive bills from your
Right,
attorney,
the other side of it.
that's a big problem too.
Yeah.
Because nobody likes the unexpected.
Yeah.
Lawyers don't like unexpected work that they should have known about in the beginning, and clients hate an unexpected bill. I've never had a client complain about a large bill that they expected.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
What
Right.
they don't like when
Unexpected.
when you unearth things,
So
right?
how do you avoid this situation?
You have to ask all of the right questions up front. So when you
Mm.
do an intake with an attorney, make sure that they're asking you for, even if they're not reviewing them for legal content, your documents. They ask you a ton of questions because there may be things that you don't know as a client you need. Obviously, that's why you're
Right.
seeing the lawyer,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
the lawyer should be asking so that they can give you kind of a scope of
Totally.
love
right.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And that
totally.
should be spelled out real clearly in your engagement letter.
Mm.
You should know what's covered.
Right.
And it should say anything more than this, we should do a new engagement, right?
Mhm.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Right. Right.
Okay. Practical experience.
Yeah, you should find someone. I'm just tooting my own horn, but like if you're an investor, you want to talk to somebody who's invested.
And that's
Yes.
so
Right.
important.
No, that's so
important.
important.
I've hired lawyers for my deals,
Yeah.
right? And so I've been on the other side of this. I have a friend who he helps disabled vets get money from the government.
Okay.
And he himself is a disabled vet that had trouble getting money from the government.
Totally.
So he not only understands how to do it, he also understands what it felt like being in that position.
Yeah.
And he knows what's going through his client's head.
Right.
Family lawyers, right? I
Yep.
have a friend who helps divorces end well. That's her,
That's her expertise.
tagline.
That's her thing.
She
Yeah.
got divorced and her divorce did not end well.
Right.
So now she is a family lawyer, make sure that everyone's divorces end well.
Totally.
So they have the experience of being both the client and the lawyer. I think that helps a lot.
Yeah, and I think
Definitely.
especially in this day and age, when there's a lot of people out there that don't have the technical experience but
Yep.
offer the service.
Absolutely.
You know
Sounds
what
like
I
a
mean?
recipe
So
Yes.
for disaster.
Yeah.
How
It
can
is.
they genuinely help you if they've not even experienced it themselves?
I am sometimes amazed by people who have like, podcasts or like mentorship programs. And I'm like, I know like you should not be mentoring people,
Right,
like
right.
it was like when I started out as a lawyer, I shouldn't have been, I didn't mentor
Yeah.
Right,
other
right, right,
lawyers.
right.
I didn't even know how to, open up the rules of civil procedure,
Yeah.
like, so, or somebody who, for example, like if they don't have a good track record, you should always, when you find a mentor, because mentorship is vital.
Yes,
You
yes,
must
yes,
have a
yes.
mentor.
Huge
I have
Totally.
a mentor. Everyone should
Yeah.
have a mentor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody has like been a good athlete without a coach.
Right.
Absolutely.
Just got to make sure that they've got the track record to support what they're saying.
Yes.
If
Yeah.
they're like, look at all my deals, and all the deals like they
Was
lost
horrible.
money. Right.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
horrible.
yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff is really,
Yeah.
really, or I love people who say I have $100 million worth of real estate, but you don't, if you subtract the mortgages, guys,
Yeah.
like, and the debt on there, you probably have closer to $1 million.
Right.
So it's like, you have to think about that, if you looked at like the amount of assets I
Yeah.
It's like under management
Right,
versus
yeah.
net worth
Well,
are very
that's
different.
that's my favorite one. My favorite
Yeah.
one is
yeah.
I own 5,000 doors. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
you're
they
like,
have a percent in the syndication or
Sure,
something
right.
like that,
they're,
right?
They're 0.5% of those
Right,
5,000
right,
doors.
right,
I
right,
own
right.
half a door.
Yes, 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 yes.
My
yes.
proportionate share.
Yeah,
Right,
you know what I
right,
mean?
right,
It's
right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
hilarious. Oh my
But-
gosh. Any projects you're working on? Published dates for books or articles coming out? Ooh.
Yeah, so we sort of talked a little bit about this, but I have a big thing about helping people consume legal services in a more economical and
Yeah.
standardized manner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Through intelligent, like bundled services,
Mhm.
templates, fixed fees, subscription agreements. That's
Mhm.
something that I've been thinking a lot more about.
Mhm.
Having people who are maybe at your stage or who need someone almost like a general counsel, but don't need a full-time general
Yes.
counsel.
Right,
Yes.
right,
They
right.
need somebody 5 hours a month
Yeah.
to go in and teach
Yeah.
their staff or to audit documents.
Yes.
Those things are really, really good and affordable and economical. And that's one thing I'm working on.
Mhm.
Nice.
Because my sort of two tiers of clients are like newer
Mhm.
investors, and then I've got the old guard, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the old guard will eventually go away,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and they got to their $40-50 million net worth each,
Yep.
Mhm.
starting
Mhm.
usually. I mean, some inherited it, but some
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
it from what you're doing
Yeah.
right
Right,
now, right?
right.
What everyone
Yep.
else is doing, and so
Yeah.
Totally.
it helps me. Working with investors of all sizes helps me really understand who I like investing with. Because you just
Ah.
want to invest with people you like, you know,
Totally.
like who are not going to be
Huge.
like picking at every little thing and
Yeah.
who understand it enough and
Yeah.
who are just kind of fun to be around.
Totally.
right.
Totally.
They're important.
But
Yeah.
I think that these services that you're building out and that you offer are critical and I think it's not offered, and it also puts up, because you're lowering this wall
Yeah,
that almost is a divide between us, the general public,
that's
and
right.
attorneys, because we're scared to reach out
Right.
for questions because we don't want this large bill, or we don't all
That's
this
right.
stuff we talked about. So if you're making it more accessible, you're making it more subscription based, or
Flat fee
Flat
is
fee.
very, very good.
do you know what I mean? Like
Lawyers
now
are
it's like-
terrified of flat fee.
They're
Lawyers,
terrified.
they're terrified of flat fee. And honestly, I hate to say it, and I'm going to get in trouble, but lawyers don't know how to run a business, right?
Yeah.
So they don't understand how
Majority
much.
of people don't know how
I
to
know
run a
that's
business.
very true.
I know that
and
is
I
true.
didn't, until like a few years ago when I
Right.
watched other people's businesses, But
Yeah.
it's like you got to know how much your estate plan is going to cost you in terms of manpower
Mhm.
and postage and whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's how you price your
Right,
subscription
right,
services.
right,
But
right.
lawyers are like, oh, but what if I need to talk to them for 5 more minutes?
Yeah.
How can I?
I know.
And they
Yeah.
can't track the time, so they
Yeah.
just don't know, right?
Yeah.
So that is a thing kind of with the legal profession.
But
you're
I
right.
just love it
yeah.
because you're making it more accessible, and it's making this barrier be less, and it's making it less scary for people to get educated and receive counsel when they need it.
That's what it is. It's receiving counsel.
Yes.
It's not the documents, it's the counsel.
Yes.
It's the interaction with the
I
attorney.
can't even tell
Yeah.
you how many times we've reached out and needed counsel, and it's like, but we didn't need documents and all
No.
this stuff. We just
Yeah, yeah,
need
yeah.
to talk through the situation.
Phone a friend is what
Right.
it is.
Phone
right.
a
Yeah,
friend.
Exactly.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
AKA
And this kind
your
of friend.
attorney.
Right, exactly. Yeah, your attorney.
The
exactly.
a real friend.
A real friend.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes,
right,
yes.
exactly.
That's
No,
cool.
it's true 'cause there is, you're right, there is this sort of big rift between sort of the old guard of
Yeah.
the lawyer in the office with the green lamp who's kind of slowly fossilizing and charging you by the minute,
Yeah.
and LegalZoom, which
Yeah,
is kind
right.
of useless in a lot of contexts. There is something in between.
Yeah.
Right.
There is a middle market.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Or like those very intense, super expensive, you're in the high rise, marble
Yes.
desks and
With 8 names in the
and you're
title.
like,
you
like
know?
That's right.
intimidated even going up the elevator.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. You're nervous
Yeah.
to talk to somebody that
Yeah.
hopefully is there to solve your problem. Like,
Right.
And then they do make you feel stupid.
and they
'Cause
make you feel stupid, right?
I
Yeah.
have been in that
Sure.
office,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
Me too. And I'm
Yeah.
like, wait, I'm a lawyer. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
talking
paying,
down to me, right?
I'm
I'm like,
paying the bill.
right,
Like, what?
right.
Oh, that's so funny.
Is
That's
there
classic.
kind of to wrap things up? Is there like a funny or unique story you'd like to share with the audience, or like
I
about
mean,
your
you
journey?
have. How long have you been in law now?
Feels like forever, but I graduated law school in 2005, and what is it, 2024? Oh my God,
almost
it's
20
20 years.
years.
20
That's
years,
bananas.
21 years. So I'm sure you have
There
some
has to be a
stories
funny
throughout.
story.
And I know, I'm
mean,
interested.
I've had clients overseas like disappear before closings.
No
Yeah.
way.
I wish my business partner from my other business and I were here. She has a wonderful way of telling this story. We had done a lot of work for a while in China, in mainland China, and
Yeah.
we had just sort of, gotten acquainted with a lot of
Yeah.
people. And the guy apparently had, I guess, pissed off the party.
Yeah.
And he just sort of was like gone for a bit, and then he came back and
Okay, he
closed.
came back,
We
yeah.
never discussed it, but we stopped doing business in China after that.
Oh
So
my
I mean,
gosh,
things
that's funny.
like that happen a
Yeah,
lot. Where
yeah.
you're in meetings and something very, very weird, takes
Yeah.
place, and you just kind of are like, is this really happening to me?
Yeah.
I had another meeting once where I was in Hong Kong actually, and I was meeting with the compliance officer of an investment company, and I was explaining we were working on a project, which is a large pharmaceutical factory and office building headquarters in Arizona,
Okay.
and we were going to. I can't remember what we were. Was it structured down? I can't remember what we were
Yeah.
talking. But the woman was not convinced that the building existed because she had a Google photo of Google Earth before the thing had been
Oh
constructed.
my gosh.
And she was arguing with me that I was making up this building and the rent rolls and the title report, and I was going
Wow.
to scam them out of $75,000 or something.
No way.
This is some crazy stuff.
was
I mean, I'm sure as an attorney, being in the real estate industry in general, you see some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with
Yeah.
people at the end of the day.
Yes.
And then you add
A lot of money.
a lot of
Mhm.
money,
Right.
and then you add, what you do with estate planning into the equation, family dynamic. Like, I'm sure you have seen so much.
My clients are wonderful. Like
Yeah.
I have to say, I can't say.
Thank you so
I can't
much.
say one thing about my clients. Sometimes it's not necessarily a good match with some clients, and then I have to be like, you really need a different kind of lawyer, right?
Mm.
But generally, my clients are wonderful. Like it's really with other attorneys, sometimes mainland attorneys.
Yeah.
Mm.
Where I'm not used to their negotiation style, and I'm
Mm.
not used to the abrasive kind of demeaning way they conduct themselves.
Right.
I am also not tolerant of chauvinism or of
Mm.
racism,
Yeah.
which happens in a lot
lot
of
of-
areas, and
yeah.
which has not earned me friends because
Mm.
I have some principles, right? And
Right.
I don't
Totally.
I
Yeah.
don't kind
You
of
tolerate any of
tolerate that
Yeah,
kind of
you're
stuff
like,
as
I
unacceptable.
don't need your
Yeah.
business. Yeah.
I don't, right, exactly. There's another way to make money.
Yeah.
right?
Totally. Totally.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of surprising behavior, I have seen that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Wow.
But a lot of people are wonderful to work with and are really honest and really want to get the deal done because at the end of the day, with transactional law, you want to sell something and someone wants to buy something, or vice versa, right?
Right.
Totally.
And you just have to nail down the terms.
Yes.
Right?
The
That's
in
all it
between.
is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a common goal. We're trying to get somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. We just have to
Yeah.
figure out how
And
to
it
get
How to
there.
could
get
be
there.
with your client, it may not be awesome for them, but it's the best possible terms that are acceptable to them.
Totally.
Right. And it kills you. You're like, oh, I just
Yeah.
wish we could. But they're like, no, David, this is fine. I just want this building. Right.
Right.
And even if it's not necessarily the best price or on the best terms, you understand that was their goal. Right.
Right.
And they know what the
Totally.
risks are. They know
Yep.
what the downsides are.
Yeah.
And you help them. Right.
Yeah.
That's what your job is to do.
Totally.
Right?
So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I mean, I always say, I feel like we unlocked the golden ticket with real estate because it let us combine our two passions, right?
Mhm.
Which is helping people and solving problems,
Yes,
and we get to make money.
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And you
I-
can do both,
you
right?
can
Yes,
do
you can
both.
Yeah.
You can
both.
do both. And actually, when you do both well, they help each other,
Uh-huh.
right?
You bet.
And so it's just like such a crazy thing, but it's the same thing that you're doing right now,
Exactly.
right? And I mean, how much of being an attorney helps build that emotional income side?
Oh
It's
my
the
gosh.
emotional income sometimes is more important than the money side. You know what I mean?
100%, because really, like, I can make money doing a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
I like working with people, and I like trying to fix their problems, and I like taking my experience and fixing their problems. And you don't have to be like the United Way, right? You don't have
Yeah,
to be like
no.
helping everybody
No,
and
not at all.
sacrificing your life.
Yeah.
Because
No.
truthfully, if you make money, you're a better employer
Mhm.
because
Yep.
you're not stressed out all the time. You're
Totally.
definitely a better parent.
Yep.
You're not worried, and your clients, they see the value in what you've given them, right?
Yes.
Because
100%.
you have given them more value than the money that they
Yes.
have provided to you.
Yes.
Totally.
And that's really what
Yeah,
do you call
that's-
win-win situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you
Well,
feel good.
Ultimately, you feel good. The client feels good. Then they're going to turn around and talk about it to
You bet.
people
Right.
and refer. And
Absolutely.
then it just is a compounding effect.
It's totally it. It's
Yeah.
totally it. It's
Yeah.
like what they talk about, like manifesting or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what
Oh,
I mean?
yeah.
Yep.
It's like I'm
Oh, yeah.
into that, right?
Yeah.
You know?
I know.
That's why I think people who are successful in life are almost like attracted to each other. Like
Yes.
I agree.
why, like, whatever the CEO of Virgin Atlantic knows, the president of
Yeah.
Disney who knows, because they all have this. I'm not saying that they're all ethical, wonderful people, but they all
No.
have something that is
Yeah.
special about them.
Right.
You're kind of operating on the same wavelength.
That's right.
right.
Yeah.
You
That's
think
right.
a certain type of way, so therefore you're attracting certain type of things,
Totally.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with like class or money. It just
Yeah.
has to do with their personality.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
So cool.
So what do you think, or what do you think the audience, what would you recommend the audience start doing like immediately? And our audience is, entrepreneurs, business owners, real estate investors. You know what I mean? Like, what should people be doing? Or what are some like big tips you can give our listeners from your
So-
legal perspective?
Okay. So, from my legal perspective, the first thing is, I think, the only thing really is to know what you're good at and know what you're bad at.
Mm.
I thought about this for a minute because it's like before I went on, like, because it's like if you know what you're good at, you can trust yourself that you're going to make the best possible decision. If you know what you're bad at, you also can trust yourself that you're going to delegate this to somebody else that's going to make the best possible decision and give you the information you need.
Mm.
Don't be afraid
Mm.
to say, I don't know,
Mm.
and hire a professional that does know.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because my accountant has saved me $1 gajillion in mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? My doctor has saved me in medical problems.
Totally.
My plumber has saved me in leaks from my roof.
Yeah.
Like, don't ever feel like you have to do it yourself. I see a lot of people who want to be like property managers and asset managers and do their underwriting and be their lawyer and their social media. And we all do this when we start a business,
Yes,
right?
it's entrepreneurial in the
Yeah, we
beginning.
Exactly.
It's like
do it
Exactly.
100%.
And so what happens after a point is like you mess things up because like you're doing like market, sell, work, like
Social media,
produce,
social media.
Totally.
and you can't do it all
No.
well,
No,
right?
you
And then
can't.
eventually you realize, like, for example, like with accounting or even underwriting, if you don't know, if you're not totally confident you've made a good financial decision,
Mhm.
that's where you hire the guy that
Mhm.
you know and say, 2 hours, here are the deal points,
Yeah.
run the
Yeah.
numbers for
Yeah.
me.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
want to be comfortable.
Right.
And that's the best couple $100 you're ever going to spend.
Totally.
Yeah.
Don't
Totally.
try and do it
So
yourself,
good.
right?
That's
Yeah.
so good.
And of course, the second thing was get an accountant. That was just,
Yeah.
I'm everyone
Get an
needs-
accountant, guys.
Right.
Yes. And
Know
we
your
can
numbers
attest to
and
that.
get an
We can
accountant.
attest to
Oh
that
my
too.
gosh, that's
So the superpower is being able to recognize what you're good at
yeah.
and knowing what you're not good at.
That's absolutely right.
I love that. I
So do I.
totally,
I think it's,
totally
it's
agree.
crucial.
Yeah.
It's crucial.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to have you come back and then talk about, well, we're going to do this in the mentorship. I'm going to have you come into our mentorship when
Cool.
it's done and like really talk about corporate structure and LLC stuff and
Yeah.
Anytime.
That would
like
be
very
awesome.
real estate specific
I'd be happy
to
do
the
it.
fix and flip space.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like a different, slightly
Yeah.
different animal, right?
Totally,
Yeah. And I mean,
totally.
that's what we specialize in.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, You have a special for our listeners.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
My
Yes.
marketing person suggested this. She's so awesome, right? This is
Yeah.
why I have a marketing person,
See?
right?
See,
I would have never
exactly.
thought of this.
It's
Right.
so good. So what can you tell the listener what the special is?
So I have a bunch of like fundamental, like I call them fundamentals real estate packages, which are
Mhm.
standard, sets of operating agreements. Some are paired with documents. Some are paired with like estate plans.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give $500 off a fundamentals package or better. You can look at the packages on the web, and
Yep.
then what you can do is, it's so cool, you can schedule a 15-minute consult with my intake person, which may be me. I don't know. If it's Deals in Aloha, I will know because you'll go to a special
Yeah. we're
URL.
gonna-
It's deals.davidaustinlaw.com.
Yes, and
Yep.
we'll put
Yeah.
the link
Yeah,
in
we'll
the
link
show
it in the show notes.
So anybody listening to this podcast can click that specific link to get the $500 off and really see what the goodies he has,
Yeah.
Right.
because you need to jump into the goodies.
Big time.
Yeah.
So where can people find you? Like, where else can people find you?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a man about town. No.
He's all over.
I'm all
He's
over the
like, are you
place
in
now.
San Francisco? Are you in Hawaii?
I
Where are
know.
you? Are you in Hong Kong?
Yeah.
Well, my social media is at David Austin Law for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Yep.
And, I'm on the web at davidaustinlaw.com.
Okay.
Yep.
I do a lot of Zoom consults. I do, you can always set up a paid consult with me. We can
Yep.
talk things through.
Yep.
And you can always contact me at my office. I'm here in Honolulu. I'm part-time on the mainland. I'm kind of going around looking at
All-
property.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm in Asia, not as much these
Mhm.
days, but I am definitely here. So.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's awesome.
Nice.
I just want to say thank you so much
I
Yeah.
know,
for
this was so
coming.
fun.
This honestly, the first time that we've ever had an attorney on, and it was really, really cool because we have a personal relationship with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's something that's not talked about enough in our
Mhm.
industry,
You're right.
and one
Mhm.
of the most important players on our team, and
Yeah,
we
thank
are
you.
a team, is
Yes.
you. And
Thank
I
you.
can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, I am much more comfortable
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh.
in what we do, because you are on that team.
You're gonna make me
Absolutely.
emotional,
No,
man.
I'm
Thank you.
serious.
No, that's
No,
really
I'm-
cool. I'm
It's
glad.
It's so true. You're an essential member to the team. In real estate, you usually have your accountant,
Right.
bookkeeper / CPA,
Yes.
attorney,
Yeah.
and then you have real estate agents, contractors, and whatever. But
Right.
like essential. If
Yeah.
you
Oh,
don't
wow.
have that, then you almost feel like a piece is missing. That's what allows us to sleep well at night. That's what
Right.
allows us to feel
100%.
secure moving forward into, because we're crazy entrepreneurs. We're
Yes.
visionaries out there
Yeah.
creating chaos.
Yes,
We're
I
like, oh yeah,
know.
let's go on national television.
I know.
You know what I mean though?
Yeah.
Like,
And I've always
knowing-
wanted to say this. Congratulations on your TV show.
Thank
I feel like
you.
I'm Stephen Colbert. Like, when is the book? It's
Yeah.
awesome.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean though? But,
Yeah, I know
but
what you
if
mean.
we don't
Yeah.
have that,
That's
it's
great.
almost like our backbone, our
Yeah.
security
Wow.
blanket.
It's a security blanket. That's honestly what it is. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So thank
So good.
Wow, that was
thank
my
you.
goal. My
Yeah.
work here is done. No, that
Yeah.
was really my
Oh
goal.
no,
It
we're
really
just getting
was.
started.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
yeah, thank you so much. All right, you guys. We
Thank
appreciate you. We'll see you next time. Aloha.
Shock us.
I'm blowing up like you thought I would. I'm blowing up like you thought I would. And if you don't know, I'm blowing up like you thought I would. I'm blowing up.